killed Osama bin Laden were never supposed to be made public. The reason? The Navy SEALs who conducted the operation may now be targets for terrorists. Gates even expressed fears for the security of their families. Pentagon correspondent Barbara Starr broke the story and joins us now with more details.
Good evening, Elliot. This is extraordinary new information. Defense Secretary Robert Gates telling United States Marines he was speaking to that he is very concerned too much classified information has gotten out in public about all of this. And for the first time, he is talking about the concerns of the commandos who conducted the raid and the concerns of their families. You will be riveted by what you are about to hear, Elliot.
A week ago Sunday in the Situation Room, we all agreed that we would not release any operational details from the effort to take out bin Laden. That all fell apart on Monday, the next day. The one thing I would tell you, though, is that I think there has been a consistent and effective effort to protect the identities of those who participated in the raid, and I think that has to continue. We are very concerned about the security of our families, of your families, and our troops, and also these elite units that are engaged in things like that. And without getting into any details, and I would tell you that when I met with the team last Thursday, they expressed a concern about that.
Now, look, there is always concern about the security of U.S. troops and their families, but make no mistake, these commandos are covert operatives. Their identities are not disclosed. They operate around the clock already in Afghanistan and other places around the world. They conducted this extremely dangerous mission, and now Secretary Gates telling us that these commandos and their families are concerned about potential retaliation. He says the Pentagon, the U.S. military, is trying to pump up security, his words, around the families. Elliot?
You know, Barbara, this is astonishing, as you say, at so many different levels. First, as the Secretary said, and he has an overwhelming point here, if there was an agreement in the Situation Room, no less, on Sunday night to keep all of this under wraps, that fell apart the next morning when there was a veritable tidal wave of information being pushed out by the White House with a blow-by-blow account of what happened. And then second, you now have Secretary Gates himself very publicly turning back against the White House, becoming the voice for the armed forces, for the SEALs, basically saying blame the press office in the White House. How do you interpret this? This just raises a raft of questions.
Well, let's be clear. Defense Secretary Robert Gates is on his way out. He will be stepping down from office at the end of June. We are seeing him conduct his farewell tour, going around to these various bases. And when you're about to leave office in Washington, retire and go back home, you tend to get a little more candid. I think that is a good deal of what we are seeing here, but make no mistake, he is a man who is deeply concerned about the security of the troops and the fact that these SEALs and the Air Force teams that he met with last week told him they are worried. I don't think this can be underestimated because these commandos basically leave their families behind. Their families know basically that their men are going very much into harm's way. The families are left for a considerable amount of period while the guys are deployed. A lot of concerns that we are now really carrying out in public, well known inside the military. They're always worried about troop security. But for these special operations forces, it cannot be underestimated that this has now come out in public, Elliot.
You know, Barbara, I don't want to change topics, but it's a little bit reminiscent of what Secretary Gates said in a speech a couple weeks ago when he said any president who sent troops into Afghanistan or Iraq the way we did in the past two wars would have to have his head examined. I may not have it exactly right. So this is a Secretary of Defense who is now saying some things that you wouldn't ordinarily expect to come out of the mouth of somebody in the chain of command, but to come back to this sequence of events, do you think he was overruled by the president and he is upset about it? Do you think the press office just decided this is clearly a turning point for the presidency? They need to get the story out to sort of make the president look that much stronger and better. How do you understand what happened here?
I don't know. I mean, that is the honest answer. I don't know how to interpret this. I think that there were clearly, because we've talked to an awful lot of officials since this happened last Sunday night, a week ago Sunday night. There are a lot of sources in Washington talking, but there are a lot of sources who are talking very carefully. Yet, we here at CNN are being extremely careful about what we report, getting it from two sources, making sure it's right. There's a lot of people out there I got to tell you, just throwing things out there that may or may not be true. We want to be very careful here about what we report. Make sure that we're being accurate. Make sure it reflects the clear understanding of the administration. But you are right, Elliot. We are seeing multiple podiums in town, as they say. The White House podium, other podiums from other buildings around town come out and speak. And Bob Gates clearly is not happy about it.
It's fascinating how this happened. If the secretary were merely worried about the security of the Navy SEALs, he would have done something very quietly within the administration to beef up security. But the fact that this information was not supposed to be made public would not itself have become the point of controversy. He chose in front of, it looked like from the video, a significant number, maybe 1,000 Marines to very publicly say, hey guys, I am the one who's upset. I'm protecting you. This shouldn't have happened. This was a very public shot at the White House press operation. This is really kind of, I don't want to say it's unsettling, but a very surprising turn of events from a Secretary of Defense who is very buttoned down in the way he handles things.
Well, let me also add, he is sending a very clear message to U.S. troops currently serving in Afghanistan, still serving in Iraq, and serving around the world, that he is representing their interests, that he is concerned about their security. I think throughout the armed forces, there is a lot of concern right now that bin Laden's operatives could stage some kind of retaliatory attack. Concern about that at the CIA, at the Department of Homeland Security. A lot of folks worried about it. And you are right, Elliot. It makes it puzzling at various points in the last several days to see the information that's coming out and try and understand why government officials are talking about it. A lot of it's because reporters ask questions and people answer our questions, Elliot.